candy store. We're going to start on this next cavalcade with this homebrew. Not sure of the date. I've got a good idea. It probably was one particular magazine or the other, but not sure which one yet. It could have been freestyled by somebody, but this is a probably 48 or 40s miniature personal set. I mean, really tiny. This is what you would call a midget back then. Give you an idea how big it is. There's a bottle of glue. You can see how tall it is. Not very big at all. So I've already started taking it apart. I've just got to get the knobs off. And we're going to start working on this chassis and see if we can get it recapped and then see what how it performs. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, take this other knob off. Should be a small set screw. There we go. Alright, now we'll take a look here. This is a shaft extension made out of a piece of brass. And then this is just a standard potentiometer, probably a Centralab. You can see here that it's the universal style. So what I'm going to do is, here in just a second, I'm going to flip this thing around and then we're going to start taking a little more disassembly steps. The fun part's going to begin how to get the battery terminals off. Okay, like I said, the fun part is going to begin. You have to lift this chassis up just a little bit. It's being held just by itself. There were a bunch of little pieces of tape all around the edges, and that was to hold a small wire in place, because way up here is a little antenna coil. So this was probably you can see this little copper wire was probably a small antenna. And I've went ahead and removed that. I'll replace that once I get the chassis recapped. It's down in here that's going to be the fun part. We've got a strip way down in here. I don't know if you can see or not, but there's a few screws holding the negative strip in place, and then there's a positive strip. Oh, here's the screw for the potentiometer. But let's see. I don't know if you can see. I don't think I can see way up in here. Up in this area. The positive leads are held by a couple of nuts. So what I'm going to have to do is to pull this chassis out, and then possibly also the speaker, and then the fun part begins of trying to get all of this the positive leads and everything else apart. Fun part, pulling this chassis. Alright, I've got it free. There it is. I'm going to move this over slightly over to the side. Interesting thing, they had, well, I don't know, yeah, an envelope flap for the insulator between the chassis and the battery leads. So now what I'm going to do, looking at this, I'm probably going to need to take the speaker out. This will give you a better view of what's going on. I have this one nut holding the positive lead for the A battery. There's another one on the opposite side. Then I've also got these 4 nuts that need to hold the speaker down. So I'm going to remove these, and then I should be able to remove this, and I should be able to free the entire assembly. Fortunately, what I was hoping was not going to be the case is the screw that's holding this nut in place is rusted, and every time I turn the screw, it spins the screw, so it's not coming free. So I'm going to be left with no choice but leave the speaker in. I went ahead and snipped the leads off. I'll take a look at those later. The last thing we need to do, and boy, I can see the rust all over it, I need to take the A leads off. This is the negative strip, going to a wire on the, well, that's an interesting place. Why on the speaker? That's crazy. I have no idea why that's going there. And also the positive lead, which is here. There's 2 strips of copper, and there's a lead that goes across to put these in parallel, then 2 screws to a wire, which then go to the chassis. Now for this, I'm going to need my nut driver set. There's only one way to take care of this, so let's take a quick peek and see if I can get this. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. This is another one where it's spinning. Hey, look, I'm spinning! I'm spinning! So, that lead's going to have to stay in place. I'll just have to find a way to make it tight once we've got ready for things ready for reassembly. So now what I need to do is I need to take out the screws. I don't know which way how to hold that. Show you. Probably that way. 2 screws here holding the negative strap in place. Now I should have a small screwdriver just to fill the bill. And it's not going to fit. What I need is something a little bit bigger. Or actually a little stubbier. Now, I want the strip out because I want to give it a good cleaning. I can get the other pieces, the positive pieces, without any problem. These negative ones, since it's right up against the body of the cabinet, I want to have it removed and then clean it. .7 ohms, we're good. Okay. It's good. So I'm just going to clean up those speaker leads once we're ready to reattach everything back together. Now I can show you a preliminary analysis of the chassis. Now we can really see what's in here. And what a small chassis this is. 4 tubes. I don't know if they're, well, they're not all national unions, they're just a little hodgepodge here and there. Karen transformers. That's what you could buy. It was like Meissner and a few other companies. This definitely must be the antenna coil. Boy, that's tight. Let's see if I can open this up, tighten it, loosen it up with some oil. Transformer's very secure. I'm pleased about that. Older style IFs instead of the smaller personal set types. Here's one R5. That must be a 1T4. This is your 1S5. Let's see what this is. I don't know if it's a 1S4 or a 3S4. That's a good question. I don't know. It doesn't say. Everything's been rubbed off on it. So now I gotta put, and you can see in there, you can see the type of tube sockets. Those are the older style, I think those are cinch or amphenol sockets, I think. I can barely read it. I think it's an amphenol socket. They're the kind that they have a snap ring underneath. instead of the flying wings with the 2 screws. So standard size pot, probably a meg if I had to guess, with a switch, and that's probably a personal set sized tuning capacitor. This does not have a shaft extension on it, believe. I thought it did, it's not. This is actually part of it. Well, it might have one, I'm not sure. Just looks a little odd. Maybe it does. I don't know. Okay, in any event, now's for the underneath. This is all original. Mallory paper capacitors. I'm not sure what this electrolytic is, but it's a 10 microfarad 50 volt capacitor, so we know now that the B battery wasn't anything higher than 45 volts, and that's what I'm going to make. Very crammed in there. Here's your oscillator coil. Non-adjustable by the looks of it, so it's stationary. Here's another light bulb. They must have used this as a fuse. I can't remember what pink bead stood for, so I'll have to look that up. But this is what we're going to start on. And by the time we get done, all of this is going to be, there's going to be a lot more room on this chassis by the time we get done, because a lot of these parts, their counterparts are a whole lot smaller. I don't have a capacitor with me. Oh, I could show you. This is a defunct one. This is a 10 microfarad 50 volt capacitor, probably of that time period. This is a 10 microfarad 150 volt capacitor. I think you can see the difference. So what I'm going to start doing is removing each one of these capacitors, putting in the modern component, and also removing this lytic. And then I'm probably going to remove this too. I have no idea why they're using this. It makes no sense to me. And once we get this assembled with new components, we'll fire this up and see what it does. While I'm in the middle of recapping, I want to show you the technological progress that's been made in the 60 to 70 plus years since this radio was built. This is one of the new capacitors. It's 0.047 at 630 volts. This is what it's replacing. As a matter of fact, this particular one was going straight across. And you can see how much of a difference that is. Even in terms of width, it's only half the width, diameter of this original capacitor. So when this radio gets done, there's going to be a lot of breathing space. Now here is a one wiring design that I'm going to sharply disagree with the original builder. What he's done is that he's got a 0.1 microfarad capacitor supposed to go to this tube, probably the 1S5, and to tie it to the volume control, which is down here, he's put a floating point terminal strip. Now I can't abide by that. It's got to be solid all the way through. Well, now fortunately, and I'll show you here in just 1 minute, 0.01s, or in this case it's a 0.03, I don't think it's going to make that much matter of a difference. It's a lot smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to float that over here, down the bottom, and then put a long wire, insulated of course, all along here to the tube, and eliminate this point altogether. To the strains of the winning of the Indianapolis 500, I bring you the finished chassis. See how much more room there is now with those smaller parts. Also put that one up towards the volume control. That's about 70 years of technology all stuffed away in there. So now the next thing to do is to make the new B battery. I'm not using these. These just are going to be asking for trouble. Instead, I have a circuit board that I've cut out, and I have 5 9-volts ready to go, so I'm going to start putting this together and I'll show you the finished product. Since we're not going to be using those clips anymore, I went ahead and created one. It's going to use the standard 467 style clips, 5 9-volts, because the original electrolytic, if I've got it here, it was a solar, and it was, by the looks of it, 10 microfarad, 50 working volts. I have a 75 working volt capacitor that's in there now. So I think that's going to be more than enough. And besides that, it's about the only thing that'll fit. It's a very tight fit in the battery compartment. I don't know what this guy used originally. Maybe he did use 9 volts. Maybe this is a newer radio than I thought. But in any event, we test. And my batteries are showing about 42.6, so this is ready to go. Now it's just a matter of clipping off those points and putting button snaps in place. What we have to do is clean the battery terminals and all the copper. Now been cleaned up for the D cells. For the B battery, I've went ahead and put the clips on, so those are all set to go. Okay, B battery is installed. A battery is installed, and while there was a break between scenes, I tested the A battery. We are getting filament glow. So, without further ado, this is our first fire up. 45 volts in, 1.5 volts in. Here we go, flick of the switch. Here it goes. Good news, we've got crackle. That means the audio section's working. A faint pong pong, but that means audio section is working. We do have filament. No audio though. That doesn't disappoint me. We've done a lot of shifting around with some new components. Everything's probably going to need to be tuned up again. But let's see if the oscillator's working. Bring out my little Zenith from the early 70s. And we'll heterodyne beat against it. So, here we go. I have it set halfway on the AM dial. Yep, it's definitely working. So, what I'll probably need to do is start tweaking all this. I'm going to throw a signal generator up on it. Probably that big beastie up there. See if I can get it to do some sounds. Okay, battery is completed. This is what it's going to look like. I based it on a company called Specialty Battery, which is Rayovac, and it's 45 volts, and the one thing that you don't see, but you see it on this thing, it's actually upside down because the two leads are down here and I did not want them touching up here and causing sparky. So that's ready. Now, the only thing left is the antenna. And we've got some problems. This is the lead, and it ends in an alligator clip. There it is. The idea was they ran this wire all along the perimeter of the cabinet, and then it exited out here and went to this lead here. If you probably can't see it in here, but there's about, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 feet of wire maybe in here, and I'm not sure what's behind here, but this is like a little antenna. Well, it doesn't really do very well, and I'm probably going to have to retune this. I thought I had it tuned up, but it doesn't turn out that way. The problem with this arrangement is when you take the chassis, I can't talk, when you take the chassis out of the cabinet, this falls apart, and you got to go reset it again. And it is a pain in the ass to put a loop in there when you have, oh, that little clearance. So what I was originally going to do was to take some cardstock and then wrap it up and down with a bunch of this type wire, and then feed it through here and then connect over here. Then maybe on this side put a little brad or possibly a small nail and connect the lead from the antenna coil, well actually, and connect the antenna to that brad, and then take this same alligator clip lead and then clip it to the nail, so that when I need to take the chassis out, unclip it from the nail, pull it out, this would, the antenna would still be underneath all in one piece. Well, I couldn't quite get that right. But then I remembered something. There was a magazine article that I saw. It's for a radio that someday I'd like to build. I built the chassis for it. And it uses what's called a capacity antenna. And this is it. It's from 1939, the whole concept. And it's just a piece of sheet metal. And it has like a 200 or, I want to say a 250 picofarad mica capacitor that goes with it. And you don't have to wind a coil or anything. This is your antenna. So, just for an experiment, I went ahead, and I'll put this down, pulled out the antenna. It already has a capacitor there, by the way. Clip it to our lead, switched it on, and would you listen to that? It's weak, but it's there. If I put my hand on it, great volume. So what I'm thinking is making a smaller version of this capacity antenna, putting it along here within the top. So, just for snicks and grins, and you see I've got this now, and my hand capacitance is causing it to work like crazy, so I think there's bound to be something involved with this. Because the way this is designed is almost like my lunchbox radio. Has an antenna coil, and in this case, instead of a capacity antenna, it's a rod antenna. So here's a small piece. It's there, but barely. If I touch, there it is. So I think this is going to be the step in the right direction. And what I'll do is I'll put this piece of metal up in here, make sure that it's not touching the IFs, and then, if I get the right capacitance, tune this thing up, and I think that way I'll be able to get stations. Okay, there's our little capacity antenna. A metal plate. Think of it as a flat telescopic antenna hooked up to an antenna coil. Now you can hear barely, there is a station in there. I have tweaked this for maximum sensitivity. I have the volume cranked all the way up, and I've just got this. So I have signal. It's just not very good signal. Now if I put my hand on this, well, it's actually working pretty good now. But, oh, I see. I need to move this out of the way. Alright. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put this little thing on a stand, and I'm going to do a little more tweaking and see if I can get anything better. There's my holder. That would be roughly where the antenna would be, although the chassis would be a lot closer, but hardly a peep. So I'll put my hand up here. Now we've got signal. So I'm beginning to wonder if maybe it's this coil just can't do the job. Because I have that bike radio, or not bike radio, lunchbox radio uses one of these similar, but it has 4 terminals, and I'm wondering if maybe I just need to put in a 4-prong of these and see if it would perk things up. As of right now, this is pretty pitiful. Stations, the volume's cranked all the way up. I barely get a peep. This works. This works beautifully. It's just it has a lousy antenna system. So I'm going to continue with this. For right now, I'm going to shelve it because I'll need to order a part for this. Maybe I'll come back to it, see if I can get this going. A little disappointed, but I am very pleased. Aside from a few bugs here and there, this does work, and it works pretty well. So maybe there'll be a part 2.